Look around you and you'll find yourself surrounded by all sorts of gadgets and applications. And in fact, even as I speak now, we're all interacting digitally through our own devices and Zoom. Now, the reality is that in today's fast paced world, digitalization is no longer an option. And more so with COVID, now that businesses are trying to adapt to the new normal to stay competitive. Unfortunately, we have small and medium enterprises or SMEs who struggle to keep up with the rate of changes as they have very limited knowledge and resources. And the same applies for China. So despite the country's huge digital economy, SMEs lag behind in digital adoption. And so to address this concern, we'll look at how one of China's biggest apps can empower more SMEs. Good morning to our esteemed panel of judges. I am Hazel.
I'm Tiff.
I am John.
And I'm Bea.
We are from Team Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines, here to show you how we reach, we run, and we race to unlock the potential of China's SMEs. Now, to start, we take a look at these SMEs. So these businesses serve as the backbone of China's economy. They make up 90% of all Chinese companies and 80% of the employment opportunities. They also own 70% of all patents issued and contribute 60% to the country's GDP and 50% to their tax revenues. But despite their huge economic contributions, SMEs have an extremely low survival rate. So about 20% fail within the first year. And with COVID-19, they're put in a worse situation, so much that at the height of the pandemic back in 2020, 85% of the SMEs were actually at risk of going bankrupt within 3 months because of a lack of cash. And so digging deeper into China's SMEs, we've identified 3 main problems that they face today. And the first is financing. So SMEs struggle to access credit because they're often rejected by banks who have very little incentive to help them. And to make it worse, those who do get loans are faced with high interest rates that are often around 20 to 50% over the benchmark from the People's Bank of China. Now, second is the lack of IT knowledge. So many SMEs now understand the merits of going digital, but they lack the confidence and don't know how to use technology. And people in lower tier cities in China, for instance, also have very little experience using the internet, which makes it hard for them to adopt any digital system. And finally, we have cybersecurity issues such as data privacy and security concerns, given that these businesses are not used to having their confidential information managed online. And so because of this, we now look at the company that's trying to address these problems. First, we have Wechat, developed by Chinese tech giant Tencent and established in 2011. Now, Wechat offers messaging, social media, and payment functions, and as of December 2021, had 1.268 billion monthly active users. Now, one of Wechat's main services is Wechat Pay, which can be used for mobile payments and digital wallets. It's currently the second most used online payment service in China with an 88% user share. And what's nice is that they cater to both users and merchants. So in the case of merchants like SMEs, they're charged a 0.3 to 0.6% transaction for using the payment service. Now, in line with Tencent, or the parent company's corporate mission of value for users and tech for good, Wechat Pay aims to enhance their ESG efforts. And so currently, Tencent has already implemented a lot of different initiatives. And now Wechat Pay wants to really further this mission by serving a very underserved market, which is the SMEs. And so to do this, they can leverage a few key opportunities. Now, first is the high preference for online payment methods, with 54% of Chinese shoppers choosing this compared to just 14% who still pay cash in person. Next, we also see that online shopping platforms are currently the leading shopping channel for Chinese customers, with 64.3% using them. And third, we found that 50% of manufacturing SMEs said that they lack the confidence with technology, which prevents them from going digital. And so these all ultimately give Wechat Pay that opportunity to provide SMEs with IT solutions to streamline their processes and cater to that shift towards online payments and online platforms. And so currently, Wechat Pay offers lots of convenient payment solutions, such as the quick pay and QR code payment. But many different challenges remain. So again, SMEs are not digitally savvy. And so we see lots of silent merchants who don't know how to use WeChat Pay, as well as lower tier city users who don't know how to use the internet. Aside from this, SMEs also spend a lot of time managing their business. They have very limited technical and managerial competence and also face various industry specific challenges. And so with this, the main problem now is how can WeChat Pay further its mission of value for users, tech for good, by improving its product offerings to better meet the needs of SMEs? Now, to break this problem further, let me pass the floor to Bea.
Thanks, Hazel. So we break down the problem into 3 issues. First, strengthening their core business, which is payments. Next, understanding how to provide more value through services. And finally, how to make growth sustainable through SME financing. Let's understand the first issue, where we ask, how can WeChat strengthen its payments value offering? Here we provide 3 alternatives. First, improving onboarding initiatives to assist SMEs. Next, have more payment methods. Or finally, lowering the transaction fees. And we use 3 criteria: the value each alternative provides for merchants, how easy it is to use said alternatives, and how feasible these plans are. And we rank the alternatives from a scale of 1 to 3, where 3 is the highest. In the first row, the option that provides the greatest value to merchants is having more payment options because each customer has different needs. However, the same alternative scores the lowest on the next criteria, which is the ease of adoption, because merchants have no knowledge about these new products. Here, we see that lower transaction fees score the highest because merchants do not need to be actively engaged. Finally, on feasibility, improved onboarding was rated the highest because these only require education initiatives. In this case, lowering transaction fees is difficult because of its impact to both profitability and to revenues. Both onboarding and payment methods are the most attractive alternatives because both scored closely and provide the highest value to merchants. And so to recap, the payment system would provide more value through improved onboarding, which leads to SME adoption across different clients, while next adding payment options as an active response to the pandemic. And so we move on to the next issue. Here we ask, how can WeChat add more value through its services? Similar to the first, we analyze a problem based on alternatives and criteria. And we propose 3 alternatives. First, marketing, which includes ads, among others. Next, digital operations, which includes inventory management and store assistance. And finally, customer relationship management, which maximizes social features to connect with customers. And then we analyze these alternatives through 3 criteria, namely the value added to merchants, the feasibility, and finally, how aligned these are with WeChat's mission. And so we rank these alternatives against these criteria. And we discover that for the value add criteria, digital operations scores the highest for 2 reasons. First, before the pandemic, there already had been issues regarding time constraints. And businesses have turned to digital in the pandemic. And many SMEs do not have the means to participate in this change. However, looking at feasibility, digital operations ranks the lowest because of scalability and financial implications. On one hand, marketing is more feasible because of its ease of use. But looking at the mission alignment to WeChat, digital operation leads because of its direct impact on SMEs to thrive post-COVID. And we see how digital operations provides the highest value for merchants and is aligned with WeChat's mission. And so we recommend that WeChat Pay should focus on digital operation services so that they can first participate in the rising digital transformation in China. Next, understand consumers and how their needs are going digital. And finally, improve an SME's business performance through production efficiency and cost reduction, among others. And so finally, we move on to the last issue, which is SME financing. Once you strengthen WeChat Pay's core business and provided options for services, we ask, how can WeChat help SMEs achieve financial stability for the long term? And we provide 3 alternatives. First, setting up a charity fund. Next, using an investment fund to pool resources from investors and grow SMEs. And finally, provide loans for eligible businesses. And 3 criteria were used to analyze which option would be best. First, how the said initiative benefits WeChat. Next, how it benefits SMEs. And finally, how sustainable these options are for the long term. And so we rated these alternatives with the same method as mentioned earlier. First, on each alternative's benefit to WeChat, loans are the most stable option. However, on which option benefits SMEs the most, charity ranks the highest because there is no loss for SMEs. But charity is considered the least sustainable since it only happens once and must be reorganized to provide funding. Hence, for sustainability, we rank loans at the highest because SMEs can apply for as long as they are eligible. And here we see that the highest ranked alternative across the three criteria is loans. And loans do provide security because first, there has been an increased funding for SMEs by the Chinese government and banks. Next, loans provide long-term sustainability for SMEs, both of which translate to three. It assists WeChat in its mission. And so to recap, we analyze the problem into three key issues based on payments, services, and SME financing. So that WeChat Pay can further its mission and meet the needs of SMEs, we recommend that they should first improve onboarding while adding payment options to the merchants. Next, assist them through digital operations initiatives. And finally, provide financial flexibility through loans. But how do all these recommendations tie together? John will tell us all about the strategy.
Thanks, Bea. So our team believes that WeChat Pay can transform the way SMEs do business. Today, we are primarily an app for receiving payments connected to a social platform. Tomorrow, we can be a bigger part of what SMEs do as an operation service provider. In our bid to unlock the potential of China's SMEs, join us as we reach undertapped segments, run digital operations, and raise financial support. These are the three pillars of the We strategy, a 3-year strategy from 2022 to 2024, where we reach, we run, we raise. Specifically, this involves consumer education, payment services that don't need internet and don't need QR codes, front-end operations in digital stores, back-end operations tools, and smarter loans. Through these, we can make value for users, tech for good, a reality for WeChat Pay. Now, SME education will target silent merchants and non-adopters. We know that rural consumers want less content and more socialization, whereas other SMEs are too busy running their business. That's why we offer a range of SME education initiatives. This includes a full-on testimonial contest for older citizens to show off their tech savviness and how it transformed their lives. The We Coach program, inspired by Douyin's TikTok-style content, which is very popular in rural locations, as well as a hands-on online video series for important topics like cybersecurity. Through SME education, we create value for users who need our guidance and use tech for good by building digital literacy. Now, beyond this, value for users, tech for good also begs the question of how we can empower the 30% of China's population who don't have internet access, and those part of the 70% but don't have stable access. At the same time, we need to protect the most vulnerable so that they're not deceived by payers, as what happened in the unforgettable story of Miss Pan. And so, to make WeChat Pay as accessible and accurate as ever, we introduced 3 new payment methods: USSD, wireless meshing, and one-time payment codes. With no internet and no QR codes, we can make mobile banking through USSD technology and wireless meshing technology. First, USSD uses cellular connections to let you keep track of your balance through your mobile provider. We aim to make this happen through a partnership. Second, wireless meshing technology, or WMT, doesn't need a mobile provider. If 2 devices are 40 to 50 feet apart, you can use your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi Direct to interact. This is the technology used by payments app Closest and social media app Fireside to connect the unconnected. Third, one-time payment codes flip the script. Sellers will input the amount that they should receive. The system generates a one-time payment code, and buyers recheck as they pay. This is different from the current approach, where buyers scan the seller's QR code, input the amount to pay, and show proof of payment. By flipping the script, we limit the risk of buyers taking advantage of unaware sellers. And while these may sound a little bit complex when we explain the technologies behind them, we will of course make it simple when we show these services to SMEs. Put together, new payment methods create value for users who are hard to reach and use tech for good through inclusivity. So SME education, check. New payment methods, check. Let's now move on to running digital operations, which has 2 parts, front-end and back-end solutions. On the front end, WeChat's WeCommerce is not SME friendly. The mini program requires your company to have an app. The alternative is that you create your own HTML5 website and have WeChat display it. So no wonder it's difficult for SMEs. We need to make opening a web store on WeChat Pay as easy as creating a Facebook group, with template shop designs that can be customized and SKU listings as simple as clicking add. SME owners won't even need IT personnel. Of course, our favorite WeChat features will still be there, like the shake function to find nearby stores and listings that are easily shareable to group chats and friends. On the back end, we help SMEs monitor their inventory, bookings, and employees. WeChat Pay will soon have dashboards and let you share data across the supply chain. Already in a digital literate and inclusive setting, this leg of the strategy creates value and uses tech for good by making future-ready SME operations easy to adopt. Now we've reached under-tapped segments, we've ran digital operations. The cherry on top is raising financial support. Simply put, we're making SME loans smarter than ever. And by this, we mean advanced credit scoring through business, personal, and ESG metrics that lead to industry-specific loans with codifiable terms. Now, ESG is to incentivize SMEs to take sustainable action. One example of a codified term is that business ABC can only spend equipment loan on equipment, and we can code that within our app. Through smarter loans, we create value and use tech for good with our empowering financial solutions. So, smarter loans and digital stores will be implemented in 2022, back-end digital operations and one-time payment codes in 2023, USSD and wireless meshing technologies in 2024. With WeChat, we can make the inclusive participation of SMEs, their digital operations, and new financial opportunities possible. Now, let's find out more about our impact and financials from Tiff. Tiff?
Thanks, John. So to better understand the impact that this strategy has on Tencent and WeChat Pay, let's look at some current metrics. WeChat Pay is the second most popular mobile wallet and payment system in China, having 900 million users in 2021, 4% higher than the previous year. WeChat Pay also has 40% of the total transaction volume in the market, but while this is high, this still leaves WeChat Pay behind Alipay, which processes 56% of the transaction volume. Thus, there is more room for WeChat to grow and try and capture a larger part of the market and cater to more SMEs. As of 2021, Tencent's revenues from its fintech and business services segment amounts to 172 billion yen, about 30% of its total revenues of 560 billion yen. This segment currently has a 30% gross margin reflecting cost per transaction handling and investments in further R&D. So Tencent continues to invest in its different business segments, incurring 60.5 billion yen in capex and spending 52 billion yen and 41 billion yen on R&D and sales and marketing, respectively. The proposed strategy will, of course, require Tencent to incur some incremental expenses as seen here. So we expect a total of 8.6 billion yen invested into the strategy, with the majority being spent on growing the team for product development, as well as having a risk management team, which will be formed for the credit scoring product. The budget for sales and marketing is also expected to increase to about 9.6% of revenues for the first 2 years for the launch of the many new products and features, as well as the other events that we plan. These will be covered by Tencent's annual capex spend and is easily covered by their available cash amounting to 168 billion yen in 2021. So while with these investments, we expect WeChat Pay's market share to grow to 50% of the expected digital payments made on mobile POS systems in 2024 in China, translating to about 340 billion yen, assuming that the revenues will be about 5% of the GTV. Overall, we expect the V strategy to benefit all those involved, uplifting and serving over 50 million SMEs and creating convenience for business owners and end consumers alike. Our initiatives kickstart the digitalization of SMEs, which the World Economic Forum has found can help reduce carbon emissions by up to 15%. Finally, we also expect increased profits as more merchants adopt WeChat Pay and encourage end consumers to do the same. But of course, no strategy is without its own risks. Thus, we've identified 3 on screen here. First is the possible reluctance for SMEs to avail of digitalization offerings as we offer offline features such as the USSD. Having these users remain online could also limit the growth of Tencent's ad revenues, which is why we have also proposed many new online features that will appeal to SMEs. Second is the high learning curve for SMEs, especially those with very limited digitalization. This can be mitigated by creating an online community for SMEs to learn from each other and from our staff who can post tutorials or step-by-step articles. Finally, there is now a risk of default as WeChat Pay begins to help WeBank offer loans. Thus, it is important that WeChat Pay is able to produce a good credit scoring system through the information that they have. Alternative credit scoring with SMEs' different metrics such as client retention can be a good way to target SMEs who do not have the extensive credit history with banks. So, To finish this off, let me pass the floor to Hazel.
Thanks, Steph. So WeChat Pay has already become part of the everyday lives of Chinese consumers, and now we believe they can unlock the potential of SMEs. They've already taken the first step with online payments, and so now we reach undertapped segments, run digital operations, and raise financial support so that we can ultimately help more SMEs thrive and more entrepreneurs are encouraged to start more businesses. Thank you very much for listening. We now open the floor to questions.
Thank you. Team Ateneo de Manila University, very nice timing. Tech team, please put the timer at 15. Yes, wonderful. I would now like to open the floor to questions.
Thank you, team. I'm Sally. I have a question for you. You put together a really nice presentation business case approaching helping supporting SME. I want to ask you, how are you going to make sure that your idea works before the company invests billions of dollars into your ideas? What would be the approach? How can you make sure that it works?
So thank you for that question, Ms. Sally. In order to ensure whether or not our solution works, we plan to roll out these specific initiatives within targeted areas in China first. So first, we can explore expanding to areas where WeChat has a higher penetration rate within specific cities in China. And that once we have positive responses, then that would actually provide us with all the more reason to expand this to other cities, especially in rural and urban areas within the Chinese mainland.
To also add to what my teammate Bea has mentioned, we plan to leverage our strengths. For example, one, we have a strong product team that has good consumer insights. We can utilize that to be able to develop a strong digital operation system. At the same time, when it comes to the financials, we can leverage on our other arms, so other arms of Tencent, to be able to ensure that these loans are also designed with a lot of consumer data, which is already present in arms like WeBank. At the same time, when it comes to initiatives such as the SME education and the no internet, no QR code payment methods, we do plan to conduct more studies to ensure that these learning modules, for example, will be effective in encouraging the consumers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, team, for that. And my name is Calvin here, right? Just wanted to check with you. I mean, I think it's a very comprehensive presentation. Can you just, maybe perhaps dwell a bit on the competition? Because WeChat is number 2 and Alipay is number 1, right? And whilst all the things that you've said, and as you slowly roll this out, Ali also has the financial strength and all that, so what's your view on competition in China? It's almost an oligopoly between just Alipay and WeChat. I mean, Tencent basically, right? You didn't really address the competition, and how do you think the competition will react to this?
Thank you very much for that question. And so with regards to what our competition Alipay is doing, so just to give you an example, back when COVID hit, they rolled out some initiatives such as offering free training courses to employees or store managers to teach them how to use Alipay. And while Alipay is currently the leader in terms of online payment services, we do believe that WeChat has an edge in terms of the social aspect. So while we are focusing more on WeChat Pay, we do believe that they can leverage the strength of WeChat as an instant messaging platform. So the fact that they're the number 1 social messaging platform is something that will help these SMEs build better relationships with their customers, given that these small businesses often grow their customer base by having these interactions and these connections with customers, which makes it much more easy for them to stay in constant communication. Now, this is in contrast with Alipay, who may have a robust payment service platform but doesn't have as large of a social platform. And aside from this, the fact that we are expanding our services to also include digital operations is something that we feel will give WeChat Pay an edge over Alipay, given that we are taking that extra step now and moving away from just payments to actually cover more of the end-to-end operations that these SMEs very much need for them to digitalize.
Yeah, maybe to add to that just quickly as well, For us, there are two ways that they can go against Alipay, which is not only grabbing market share, but also tapping into those under-tapped markets. And that's why for us, things such as education is very important. There are so many SMEs out there who are still not using B2B SaaS. So getting them on board with WeChat Pay first before Alipay through education as well as other features will definitely give WeChat Pay an edge.
Just on hi, this is Jaime. Just on the loans that you're proposing to do, maybe you can walk me through a little bit more about how exactly would that work? Would WeChat be the ones providing the loans, and how would the rate be compared to, for example, what they could potentially get with some of the programs also being rolled out by the PBOC in coordination with the more traditional the traditional banks, who I guess is where you could potentially compete against. How can you talk a little bit more about how do you intend to operationalize the loan business?
So just to give you a few context, we will be funding these loans through WeBank, wherein Tencent is actually also has a major stake. So currently, WeChat actually already offers consumer loans called the Weilitai, which is also financed by the WeBank. And they actually offer very low interest rates, as low as 100 yuan in some cases. And WeBank also offers what they call the Wechat, which are the small business loans. However, these small business loans can only be accessed through the bank and not the WeChat Pay platform. So essentially what we want to do is make the loaning process, the application process, much easier and more streamlined for these businesses, especially if they're not very familiar with banking operations. And so what we plan to do is have them be able to apply for these loans directly through the WeChat Pay platform. And aside from this, what we're contributing is more advanced credit scoring algorithms so that we're able to really hit on the needs of these SMEs, such as specific industry needs, wherein we could sort of modify the interest rates or the repayment terms based on the behavior of these companies, as well as looking more at some ESG metrics that we could potentially quantify through our algorithms, because we do want to forward the mission of value for users and tech for good.
So to also add to what my teammate has mentioned, we can dive deeper in advanced credit scoring and look at the business metrics. So we want to implement some of these data points so that we can more efficiently provide loans to our clients. So for example, we can look at customer retention, rating and reviews, which ties up really well to the digital operations segment of our strategy. Other than that, we're also looking at industry-specific loans, which are also available in other loan providers, but not all. So for example, in some traditional banks, you might have to approach them and negotiate with them based on your business. But what we want to do is that we want to have an offering for each industry, and then we can further discuss from there. This makes it easier for SMEs to assess whether this loan might be an option for them before further negotiation. Finally, we're looking at smart loans. So we took inspiration here with smart contracts, but we're not necessarily using blockchain, although it is also possible since WeChat does have blockchain already working. So what we want to do here is so that we can codify certain terms if possible. For example, as I mentioned earlier, if we have an equipment loan and we want to make sure that it's only used for equipment, then we can also code that in, and they can only spend it WeChat to WeChat, and then it has to be with an equipment company. So these are the sort of things that we want to operationalize to be able to enhance our loan offerings and make it more possible for more SMEs to achieve financial support.
And just to quickly address your question on how this compares to loans from incumbents in the market, so such as traditional banks. Actually, in China, the government is trying to get lower interest rates for these SMEs, especially the smaller businesses. So many incumbents aren't very keen on giving these loans out because of the low interest rates and the high risk. And that's something that all of these digital banks are taking advantage of, because they can leverage a lot of different scores, a lot of different information for alternative credit scoring, which can help them better provide these loans even with the low interest rates. So with WeBank, their NPL ratio is as low as 1% compared to others in the market with about 1.5%. So we know that these alternative credit scoring systems are working, and WeChat Pay is there to help advance this even further.
Thank you. Just one question from me. China is a highly regulated country, right? And you see that happening. When Ali wanted to list and financed, it was it went through quite a bit of regulatory issues and all that. What do you think would be a regulatory challenge for you, given the fact that you are now moving into financing? And whilst WeBank does consumer financing, you're now talking about SME, which actually cuts across into a business. Have you all considered the regulatory impact on this?
In terms of regulatory environment, that's something that we do want to mitigate through the partnerships that we are planning. So with WeBank, they do offer personal loans through Wechat Pay, which is the Wei Tai, but they actually also offer Wechat, which is the SME loans. And we know that this program is actually quite successful. They've loaned to 800,000 SMEs since 2017. So they're very experienced in this space, and that's something we expect Wechat Pay to work together with them to formulate to ensure that they're still compliant with all the regulations in China as well.
And to further add to this, one of the main regulatory concerns that was really raised with these online platforms would be data security or data privacy. However, Wechat Pay currently has a very robust privacy system, as they're currently insured by the People's Insurance Company of China. And they also have lots of security measures in place, such as data encryption or risk monitoring, as well as device protection. And so we believe that as we go into the financing space, there may be some regulatory risks. However, having that robust security system will sort of shield them from the potential impact of these risks. And moving forward, Wechat Pay can continue to build on that system that they already have, because as we've seen, they have a very good R&D team. They have very good capabilities in advancing their technologies.
And while we're on this page, can you talk a little bit about the ESG integration piece? So how exactly do you think that would work? If it's ESG related, does it increase my chances of getting a loan? Does it improve my credit score in your algo? Like how would it work?
So thank you for that question. And when we talk about the ESGs for small businesses, which we believe we actually seek out for based on their credit score. So depending on how well integrated these small businesses are, depending on ESG goals or how related they are in implementing and achieving ESG goals, then they will achieve a better credit score, which will also in turn affect their loaning system from us and Wechat Pay.
Yeah, so just to add to this, essentially, so what we do is we look at, we will be coding the algorithms in such a way that we're able to sort of quantify or measure the ESG impact that these small and medium businesses have, so that those businesses who have some initiatives in place are able to score better with their credit score, which improves their chance of getting a loan. And so by doing this, we're not just forwarding our personal mission, but we're also encouraging these SMEs themselves to contribute to the larger goal here at hand, which is ultimately to help the entire country forward their goal of sustainability.
Thank you. What sort of ESG algorithm specifically are you looking at? Is it the environment? Is it the social aspect? Yeah. What are some of the things that you think you would recommend in terms of the priorities?
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that question. In particular, when we're looking at ESG metrics that we can use to score the businesses within China, we can take a look at how aligned these are with the Chinese government and how they actually plan to grow the Chinese economy through their 6-point plan, which focuses on housing, food and security, and education, among others. So if these businesses are aligned with the Chinese plan for the government, then we would also take those into consideration when implementing the algorithms when it comes to providing the credit scores for these types of companies. So for now, we're focusing on the social aspect of these businesses and then move on to environmental, which will also provide a greater impact and the triple bottom line for our strategy.
We have 1 minute. I have questions regarding the online one. I saw I see that you have three components: the payment, the online, and the loans. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the online store, the component of the online part? How are you going to help the SME, and how does it work overall? In addition to you just sign them, you just give them a platform so that they become an online shop. How are you going to help them to promote their products?
All right. So like you mentioned, the first part is making it easy for them to open a shop, right? Since right now it's difficult, they need to have their own app, they need to have their own third-party website, but now they can easily make one. But together with that, I think what's key here is the WeChat integration. For one, we're encouraging consumers to have ratings, reviews within the app. So compared to the present time where consumers might be contacting SMEs, messaging them to be able to ask, oh, what are your offerings? What are the prices? Right now, we make it easy for them to display it and to view ratings and reviews, which makes it easier for consumers, especially online consumers, to make their decisions. Especially given that for younger consumers, they are very keen in ratings and reviews.
Okay,
Another
thank you, John. This was the end of our Q&A. I would like to ask the judges to stay in the room. Everyone else, please move to the waiting room. We will call you back after the judges have deliberated, so you can receive some feedback from the judges. So see you in a few minutes.